What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast, a podcast where your self limitations are destroyed and your dreams are accomplished. I'm your host, Brandon Davis, and on today's episode, as we're kind of getting partway through summer now, I wanted to sit back and do a solo episode where we reflect a little bit about what's been happening so far and how we can continue to progress ourselves. In a more specific note, I want to be discussing today on how we can get the job done even when we don't want to. Guys, especially during the summer months, sometimes all we want to do is go out and party. All we want to do is go have fun with our friends, our coworkers. I think the last thing on anyone's mind during summer is work hard, right? And it's a concept that a lot of us face day in and day out when we don't want to get out of bed, when we don't want to get our assigned tasks completed, when we don't want to go to the gym, or whatever other situation you might be in. So that's what's on tap for today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. I want to thank every single one of you for listening continually. So, with all that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So to start off today's episode, I want you all to kind of close your eyes if you're in a spot where you can do so at the moment and picture this scenario, right? You had a late night last night. Maybe you went out drinking with some of your friends. Maybe you went out and partied, whatever it may have been, even if you just stayed up playing video games all night with some of your buddies online, right? You had a very late night. And the next morning, you wake up, your alarm goes off at 7, 8 in the morning. And what do you want to do? All you want to do is hit snooze and just go back to bed, right? And even if it wasn't a late night, maybe you're sick, maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're just kind of overwhelmed or anxious in this moment, and that alarm goes off. And what is your initial thought right when it goes off? Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I didn't sleep at all. I'm still exhausted. All I want to do is continue going to bed. I just want to lay here. Even if I don't fall back asleep, I just want to lay here all day, right? I think we've all had those situations in our lives where that alarm goes off and we're just dreading getting up, right? And there's some validity behind a lot of the situations. If you're sick, obviously, you'll want to stay in bed and you're going to want to recover. If you had a late night last night, you're going to want to stay there and go back to bed so you can get the appropriate amount of rest as needed. And obviously there's times like I'm not a medical doctor or anything, so I'm not saying if you're sick you shouldn't be laying down for a little bit longer, but I'm saying in a practical sense, we got work to do, guys. And all of us have been in that situation where we don't want to get out of bed, but today's episode, I want to help us get out of bed. I want to focus on how we can get done the things that we need to get done despite how much our brain or our body is telling us like no, we don't want to keep working right now. All we want to do is lay in bed all day under our covers, watching a nice little show. Heck, maybe somebody can even bring us some food in bed, like just this magical scenario. But that's not the case. We literally have things we have to get done. And every single one of you listeners out there, we're on the grind mentality. We're getting over ourselves. We're pushing ourselves to the limits. So why on earth are we sitting back thinking that we're going to lay in bed all day? Because we know that's not even a reality that's going to happen. We're going to keep pushing ourselves. And I want to share a little story. I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this podcast, you would be familiar with the name of David Goggins. David Goggins is like the master of his mind. He is somebody I look up to a lot. I love his books. I love all of his inspirational speeches and whatnot. And I get a lot of my content and a lot of my inspiration coming from David Goggins. And I listened to his episode on the Joe Rogan Experience. If you guys have listened to his episode on Joe Rogan's podcast, it's very interesting. Him and David and Joe, they're sitting back and they're laughing. And Joe basically asks David this question of, how do you get your brain and your body to go and do the crazy things that you have done? And I guess I'll add this plug. If you haven't heard of David Goggins, he does these crazy ultra marathons. He does all these crazy stints out in the wilderness. He does anything basically to make your mind and body go through hell, but he does it in a way of trying to strengthen himself. And I love that. That's why I do a lot of things by going to the gym, sauna, cold showers, ice baths, everything like that. It's to get me out of my comfort zone, right? Much like David Goggins. But so once again, Joe Rogan, he asked David Goggins, like, how do you keep doing that day in and day out? Like what you're doing, it's like a freak of nature. Granted, David Goggins is like the king of all this. He has mastered his mind completely. But David goes, he got real for a minute. It's something you don't necessarily hear him saying a lot of the time in his books or in his shows that he goes on. But he kind of sat back with Joe and he said, sometimes I really don't want to do it. And he gave this specific example. He goes, sometimes I'll go on my run and I'll sit, and before lacing up my shoes, I'll just stare at them. I'll just sit down and I'll stare at my shoes, my running shoes, for 30 minutes. He said sometimes. Obviously, not every time, but sometimes he'll just sit down and stare at his shoes for 30 minutes. And he goes, I don't want to do that. My body's sore. My mind is sore. I got my wife laying in bed. It's 4:30 in the morning and I don't want to get out of bed. It's freezing cold outside. I got a million other things that I probably wish I was doing right then. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm thirsty. I just want to break, right? And that was very interesting to me because I'm like, David Goggins, like, you never hear him talking about this kind of stuff. He's go, 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 Mr. Motivation, Mr. like, nobody understands me. I'm going to go hard and I'm going to crank it out, right? And he told Joe Rogan, he goes, no, like, sometimes I sit there and I struggle with getting my shoes on and convincing myself to get out there and start my run. But this is the key takeaway. He goes, but no matter if it takes 30 minutes or it takes 5 minutes or it takes 30 seconds for me to put those shoes on, I know I'm going to still go out and get my run done. And I love that because David Goggins, he's mastered that mentality that, yes, there's going to be moments where we really don't want to do something. And granted, he just sat there for 30 minutes before he put his shoes on and started his run. He's 30 minutes late, but he still got up and did it. And guys, if that's not a reality check of life, I don't know what is. Because going back to the example of you laying in bed and not wanting to get up in the morning, we all have been there. If you ever talk to somebody who claims they have never slept in or claims they have not laid in bed for an extra 20 minutes before their alarm goes off, or has claimed that they don't have those days where they just feel slow or tired or bogged down and don't want to do anything, either I have to meet them personally or I believe that every single one of them are lying. Because, guys, we all go through that. Remember, a lot of these motivational videos you might be seeing on TikTok or Instagram or you're watching on YouTube or whatever, it's these guys who are hyping you up 24/7 and act like that is their lifestyle all the time. I'm going to get up and I'm going to get to work right away at 4 a.m. and I'm going to master my day and yada, yada, yada. Granted, do they do that most of the time? I sure hope so if they're putting that out there. Same principle with my podcast. Every piece of advice I leave, I'm practicing it in my life. Obviously, I have shortcomings. Obviously, there's times where I fall behind a little bit. But for the most part, I'm trying to work on it every single day, much like everyone who listens to this show. And so going back to that David Goggins example, that is so beautiful. He sat there for 30 minutes, but then he still went out on his run. And I feel like if you're getting to that point where you can master your mind and tell it like, no matter how bad I don't want to do something today, I'm going to go accomplish it because I told myself I was going to do it. That is the most powerful mindset. Guys, I don't care if it takes you an extra hour, an extra 30 minutes, an extra 6 hours to go and do something that you promised yourself you were going to do, but go and do whatever you promised yourself you're going to do. The perfect example of my life right now has been taking my cold showers every day. There are some days where it is very easy. I go to the gym and right after the gym, I'm immediately hopping in my cold shower. I'm sweaty and I'm gross and I'm hot. And so that cold shower actually feels really good. I might have taken that cold shower had I not been doing this challenge of taking a cold shower for 365 days consecutively. Despite the challenge, I might have already done it just because of how I felt. But then there's other days where maybe it was my rest day, so I didn't go to the gym, or maybe I just had a million other things going on throughout my day, and I haven't got to my cold shower yet. And there's been moments back in the middle of April. I remember I was laying down one night, and I'm just laying there. My roommate was across. This is before I was married, so my roommate was laying across from me, and he's snoring a little bit, and I'm just laying there, and I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, dude, it's like 2 a.m. right now, and I can't go to bed. And for all my longtime listeners out there, that's something I've always struggled with is going to bed, and I'm still working on that right now. But this night felt a little different. Sitting there laying, and if you're watching right now, I'm just kind of got my head on my pillow, my eyes are closed, but my mind is just racing and racing, and I can't figure out what is keeping me up. And then it hits me like a brick wall. Like if I just ran into it, it hits me. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't take my cold shower today. And so what did I do at 2 a.m? I got up and I went to work. I turned on that shower. I took off all my clothes and I jumped right in, and I was in there for about 4 minutes. And if you would have told me that was who I was going to be about a year ago, I don't know if I would have necessarily believed myself. Because granted, I've always considered myself somebody who is trying to progressively grow, right? I'm into self-development, I'm into progressing myself, I'm into mastering my mindset, right? But I was super proud of myself that April night when it was 2 in the morning. I set aside sleep. I set aside my comfort of my bed. I was in my pajamas and my really warm Serenoni blanket, and I'm just loving life. And I was like, you know what? I promised myself I'm going to hit these 365 days consecutively of taking a cold shower. So I'm not going to let it being 2 in the morning and me being comfy stop me from accomplishing that goal. And I really don't know if I would have done that a few years back. I'd like to say I would have, but that's not the reality of it. I think I would have lied to myself and said, oh, I'll do it in the morning. And I would have missed that day and I would have broken my entire challenge just 4 months into the process. And so I guess I want to take a step back and analyze for you guys personally. You might be on the step of the journey where it's very hard to get up at 2 in the morning and you want to stay in bed. Or you might be at the point where you wouldn't have even forgotten that you didn't take your cold shower and you would have taken it way earlier in the day because you're way more prepared than I am. But whether if you fall on that extreme of, yes, I'm absolutely getting everything done and I'm prepared and I'm hitting every goal of where I'm at, or you're just getting started on your journey, I want you to appreciate the progression slowly but surely. Sometimes we beat ourselves up so hard because we want to consistently lay in bed. Our alarm goes off and all we want to do is lay there. And in our minds, we beat ourselves up. Why am I trying to sleep in more? Why am I being lazy right now? Why do I just want to stay in my covers and not go eat breakfast or go hit the gym or go get started at work? Why do I not want to go accomplish those things? Because I know I got to get them done, but I just want to lay here. I'm tired. I'm anxious. I don't feel like doing anything today. Guys, appreciate how far you've come. Maybe you're telling yourself this at 7 in the morning when a couple years ago you would have been waking up at 8, 9 a.m. Maybe you're telling yourself this after you just ran 5 miles yesterday, and so your body is tired. Maybe you're telling yourself this after you've gone through a tough conversation with a loved one, or you're in a weird spot in a relationship. I don't want you to sit there and focus on the negative aspect of, gosh, I really don't want to get out of bed this morning. I'm just going to lay here. I want you to be like, I want you to focus on why are you having those thoughts and feelings? Why did you stay up late last night? Why are you tired? Why are you X, Y, and Z? Analyze it, because I guarantee there's some golden nuggets in there that are going to tell you why you're feeling so down or feeling so tired. Odds are, I'm not saying this the majority of the time. And so the times where it's not, where you legitimately just wasted your night the night before and now you're tired and you don't want to get out of bed, that one's probably on you. But I don't think that's the majority of the time. Majority of the time, maybe you're a new parent and your kid kept you up all night and you need a couple extra minutes of sleep. No one's gonna stop you for that. We understand. Guys, I guess the point I'm trying to make is don't sit there and beat yourself up 24/7. Once again, I'm not saying that there isn't times where you should kind of be more stern with yourself and we're like, hey, you partied all night last night. Like, this one's on you. Get out of bed because you could have gone to bed way earlier. But for those times where you're literally exhausted from a physical exercise, from something in your mind that's going on, something in your workplace, whatever it may be, there's times where you're going to just want to lay there. So don't fear it. Don't beat yourself up. Just recognize it, be able to acknowledge the situation and figure out how you're going to correct it for the future. Even if you're going to figure it out while laying in bed, maybe that's something you can kind of just sit back and enjoy, right? If you're going to lay in bed anyways, kind of figure it out. But guys, stop beating yourselves up over it. But I also want to offer a little bit of a reality check. Are there going to be the times where you want to sit there and lay down? Like I just mentioned, yes, you might have had a really hard day the day before and you want to lay there and not get out of bed. Or I keep going back to this bed example, but at any point in your day, maybe it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you can see yourself progressively getting more tired at work and you're getting less accomplished, right? Or you're 20 minutes into your 40-minute workout and you're slowly starting your sets slower and slower. You're not getting the weight back up. You're just being kind of lazy at the gym, right? Here's a reality check for you. Despite how tired you might be, you still got stuff to do. If you work for somebody else, you still got to go to work every morning. You still got to check off all the boxes and do all the tasks that your boss assigned you to do. Whether you're working for somebody else or I guess personally, right? going back to an example inside of my life, I can lay in bed all day, but then I'm not going to grow my podcast. I'm not going to become a better salesman. I'm not going to be a good student. I'm not going to be a good husband, right? There's a million things I got to check off as well. Even if I am working for myself, like I still have to get out there and do it. That's the reality check. It doesn't matter if you're tired all day. It doesn't matter if you want to lay in bed all day. There's crap that you got to go get done. So stop acting like there isn't and go and do it. If you have to go back to that David Goggins example and you need an extra 30 minutes to put on your shoes this morning, recognize that, but don't do it every day. David Goggins, he may have taken 30 extra minutes, but he still went on that run. So go get the work done that you need to. Even if you wake up a little bit later, even if you're exhausted, go get the work done because no one else is going to do it. You're the one who has to get it done. So go and do it. And I recognize I keep saying go and do it, right? Go get it done. Go do it. You got this. I'm trying to hype you up a little bit, I guess, but how do you get to the point where you can? It's mastering your mindset. It's slowly but surely accomplishing the tiny little tasks that make up a bigger future. And like I mentioned a minute ago, I had the example of a couple years ago. I don't think I would have gotten out of bed at 2 a.m. to go take that cold shower. And that's the point in the journey I am at now. I am willing to get out of bed at 2 a.m. to go take the cold shower. But are there other areas in my life I'm still maybe falling short on or kind of cheating myself about? Absolutely. I think every single person on this earth does. But what are some ways we can kind of grow ourselves up a little bit to be able to accomplish those little tasks that we have that we don't want to do, but we still need to get them done? And I was reading an article in Forbes magazine recently, and I think it fits best. I'll link the article down in the description of today's episode, but I feel like it describes it perfectly. And in the article, they were interviewing a man who just created this productivity app. And basically, inside the article, he was telling the interviewer, like, I understand there's going to be the days where people are getting less done, but here's a way that I keep myself motivated and I keep myself kind of getting all the tasks done that I need to do. And he says, part one is he basically said, I break my tasks up into simpler bite-sized pieces. A lot of times as humans, we have a big task that we have to get done. And let's offer an example. Say you had like a project back in high school that you had to do. You've had a month to prepare for it, and it's a really big project. You had to make a slideshow about it. You had to bring a physical presentation, and then you had to present it in front of the class, right? There's all these different steps that you had to follow. There's criteria and a grading rubric that your teacher gave you, right? You have to kind of follow this thing to a T. And so what he said is basically, instead of looking at the entirety of the project, like I have to get 10 points here on the grading rubric, I have to speak like this fluently, I have to, and he goes through all the rubric and you see it's out of say it's out of 200 points, right? He goes, instead of seeing that it's out of 200 points and worrying about every little bit in the process, focus about one tiny piece of that grading rubric right off the bat. And so say you have to worry that all your text is 12-point font Times New Roman, right? Okay, I can go through and I could check that off right then. Boom. Okay, your next point, you're getting graded on. This one's worth 7 points. You have to make sure in your presentation you include a picture. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to include a picture inside my presentation. Then worth 20 points in your presentation, you can't say the word or you can't pause for longer than 10 seconds. So that one gets a little bit tougher, but you're going to think about it. Okay, when I'm giving my presentation, I'm not going to say I'm not going to wait a long time. I'm just going to keep going. And then you get graded on it. So basically, his entire point was stop thinking about the entire project as a whole, but break it down into the small grading rubrics. And then the other piece of strategy, the other piece of advice he gave was simply, a lot of times we get stressed or anxious about the things that we haven't accomplished yet. So try and map out your day around what you have going on already. And so if you have that big project, once again, maybe you're the kind of person who sits back and you're like, I want to bust this all out at one moment. So you sit down for a couple hours, you sit down for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, and you get it all done. You get that school project perfect according to the grading rubric. You go one step at a time, and then you eventually get all 200 points, and you say, all right, it's perfect. Or maybe you're the type of person who kind of stresses. Maybe you're like a perfectionist or something, and you go, I am a little bit worried that I'm not going to get it all done. If I sit there the entire time, I'm just going to worry about the little nitpicky details of the project that don't even matter. It's not even the grading rubric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of time block it a little bit. I'm going to set aside 30 minutes at 1 o'clock today. I'm going to start working on it. Then I'm going to go take a 20-minute break and do something else. Then I'm going to sit down for another 30 minutes and then 20 minutes on something else, another 30 minutes on the project, 20 minutes somewhere else. So that's the other piece of advice he offered was sit back and actually analyze how you are motivated. Are you motivated by knocking it all out at once? Are you motivated by taking breaks in it and kind of doing it bit by bit? Another example he offered was, are you motivated by working in group settings? So maybe if you're working on this project, you can get a bunch of your classmates and go work on it. And maybe you're the type of person who wants to bust it all out at once. Like he offered these various examples. And so the point I'm trying to make with you guys is, in your life, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's an assignment from your boss, whether it's trying to make yourself live a more healthy lifestyle, maybe it's if you're trying to learn a language, right? Figure out what motivates you and use that to your advantage. Just because you're assigned a task or you're challenging yourself to do something doesn't mean that you have to do it in a specific way, right? Of course, you have to, once again, going back to the project example, you have to follow the grading rubric, but that doesn't mean, as long as I'm following the grading rubric, I can't do my own way of figuring it out. And I feel like sometimes we think, especially if we see other people doing it, right? We see Susie from class who made her presentation look perfect on a Google Slides presentation, but then Bobby over here used Prezi, right? You can take your own way of doing it and customize it as long as you're, once again, following those grading rubrics. Inside of your life, everyone goes to the gym and you could do different workouts, but as long as you're getting stronger and you're feeling good about your physique, it doesn't really matter. I mean, different exercises are going to fit different people. So don't necessarily just go out and copy somebody just because they're doing it their way. Go figure out your own. Figure out what motivates you and figure out how you can enjoy the journey while you're on it. And guys, as we're coming up on the close of today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast, I want to frame it down a little bit and recognize that, are there still going to be bad days? Absolutely there are. Everyone's still going to have the days where they wake up and they don't want to get out of bed. They don't want to go do that project. They don't want to go to work. They don't want to go to the gym. They don't want to read. They don't want to go. Heck, even some people have the days where they don't even want to go shower or make food, right? Everyone goes through those different days where they're sitting back and they're stressed about life and they don't want to go and do it. But if you just can continually increase your efforts by 1% every day, you can match yourself. And just like the David Goggins example, even if it takes you 30 minutes to go get those shoes on, just know that you are disciplined enough. You made a promise to yourself and you're not going to break commitments to yourself or promises. You're going to go get that done, even if it takes you an extra 30 minutes. Guys, there are going to be the days where you're tired. There are going to be the days where you don't want to do anything. But if you're consistent, if you're disciplined, if you don't break promises, you're going to keep doing it. No matter how tired you are, no matter how sore you are, no matter how anxious you are, you're going to keep fighting for it. And I recognize it might not get done perfectly. It might get done 4 hours longer than it should have taken, but you got it done. And so I'm proud of you. That's my challenge for everyone today on the Get Over Yourself podcast. Next time you feel like you don't want to accomplish an assignment and get up for work or whatever it may be, even if it takes you a while, just go and get it done. Just go and get it done. That's my challenge for you. So guys, that's what I have for you on today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to go share it with a friend who you feel like could benefit from hearing it. Also, on whatever preferred streaming platform, wherever you're listening or watching me today, make sure to drop me a review, go subscribe, like it, and share it. That's how I continue to grow the podcast, and it would mean the world to me, guys. And once again, we're in the middle of summer right now. There's so much ahead of us. Don't let this be the time where you just sit and lay in bed all day. Go actually chase your dreams. Go do something. This is the perfect time. Just go and get started. And guys, just remember, at the end of the day, it'll all be okay. Just take a step back and recognize it may take you 30 minutes to put those shoes on, but you're still going to go on the run.